What is good, homies? This is Chris from the Small Hat Crew, solo video, so I'm not joined by the Small Hat Crew today. It is just me, and I'm picking up where I left off. This is part 2 in the series of the One Piece TCG Retrospective. First video is me covering Blue, their depressing rags to riches story. They started out so bad, you would really think Bandai might have hated them, actually. Like, it would... If someone told me Bandai hated Blue in the beginning, I would not doubt that. I wouldn't doubt it for a second, because, like, bruh, why did it take 4 sets for them to finally be able to touch an 8-drop character? Purple's kind of the opposite, though. Purple started out with really good cards, and then they just started to get neglected. It's almost like Bandai couldn't devote attention to more than one color at a time. So because they were finally lifting up Blue, it was like they could no longer give any attention to Purple. You really would think that, like, they could only do one good color at a time. So because of how bad Purple has had it recently, I'm gonna have to cover OP05 in this video. We're not even on OP05 yet, but if I do not cover it, then Purple, this video ends very depressing. So for all the Purple believers out there, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna include OP05, even though America's not there yet, just so that Purple does get a happy ending in this one. So we're gonna go ahead and jump into it. We'll start with the structure deck. That was STO4, and that is where we introduce the leader, Kaido. His ability was he minuses his Dawn, trashes a life off of the opponent. Really random. I never really realized how random it is that he does that. That has literally nothing to do with Purple. I have no idea why he does that, but it was a good ability. It was one where most of the game you're gonna be playing your game on a vanilla leader, but then when it came time to close the game out, you would finally have a leader ability. So it's like you never really used it more than once, but when you did, it was game ending, quite literally. This starter also introduces a stage. We have Onigashima, 3 Dawn. You tap it, you ramp 1 Dawn. So Purple's identity is they have a bunch of very expensive characters, or they have characters with very powerful effects. And to offset this, they minus a Dawn. So they basically set you back. They throw you on your opponent's curve, and then every time you use another, Dawn minus effect, you fall even further and further behind on curve to make up for the fact that you're getting really strong effects. Like board wipes, like popping stuff, like drawing. So Onigashima was a good way to offset that. This card was Purple's identity. Like, literally, if you were playing Kaido, you would just look for Onigashima. If you didn't open it, you mulliganed. Like, that's how vital it was. It was so critical to the game plan that Purple was playing that when we get to OP01, I'm gonna go ahead and cover a tech card that people were playing that was really, really weird. But it'll truly go to show just how desperately they wanted this card. We also got a 5-drop Queen, amazing blocker, one of the best blockers this game has ever seen to this day. It's a 6k blocker, so that's also, it goes to show Purple's identity. They have a bunch of big bodies. Here they have a really big blocker. They have a 6k blocker. At this point, I'm pretty sure every other blocker we've seen, aside from green, hasn't been any more than 2 or 3k power. So Queen out of nowhere is just a big blocker because Purple's big bodies. We also have King, 6 cost King, such a good card. You just minus a Dawn, you pop a 4 or less. You pay 6, you pop a 4. If you have Onigashima, there's literally no downside to it. It is so good. But yeah, a lot of Purple, either you're trying to offset the Dawn that you're spending, or you're trying to ramp up to 10 to blow up the board. You're just trying to establish big bodies, and as we get further on in the card game's history, it becomes more and more evident just how badly they want to be ahead of you in Dawn, so that they can put so much pressure on you that you can't really do anything about it. Next we have 9 cost Kaido. I don't know why he has Rush. I really don't. That is a red identity thing, but Purple just randomly dips into it so much, and by so much I mean 3 times. There's a terrible Queen in OP01. There's a 2k in OP05. There is this Kaido. There's probably another I'm blanking on. But yeah, this was a giant 10k body that just popped a blocker, for example, and then rushed the opponent. And yeah, for the most part, I'm pretty sure he pops every single blocker in the game up to this point, aside from 7-drop Kid. So literally he would pop the blocker, then go face, and they just couldn't counter on it because it was so massive. We also got 2K ulti, so this is their 2K, more of like Purple's identity here, establishing big bodies. Their 2K is literally a body that plays a 6K out of the hand. Then we have Blast Breath. This is a counter event for 1 Dawn. They 4K, so literally it is Radical Beam. The trade-off being that you minus a Dawn, so you usually don't want to use it too early. But if you have Onigashima, then there is no downside. It's literally just Radical Beam. So, now that we have set the foundation for what Purple is big bodies, Purple is powerful effects, Purple is destruction, Purple can randomly be rushed for some reason. I don't remember if I said big bodies, but if I didn't say big bodies, Purple is big bodies. Baby again. And Purple is ramping Dawn. So now we're going to move into OP01, and we get to our new mono leader. We have King. This leader, I don't even know what to say. Like, he just never did anything. The weirdest part about him too was that like he wanted you to be at 10 Dawn. So if you weren't at 10 Dawn, he had no leader ability. But all of the good Purple cards want to minus Dawn. So he is literally counteractive to what Purple wants to do as a color. If you are playing Purple, a lot of Purple is hitting that perfect curve of Onigashima, Queen, 7-drop, 9-drop or 10-drop, just depending on Onigashi. Like, literally, all of those cards minus Dawn. So there is never a reality where King ever made any kind of sense. At this point in time, King has literally done nothing. He's never achieved anything. He will much later on in the game's history, like maybe a year later. And even then, it only happens one time. And he needs newer cards to do it. So at this point in the game's history, in OP01, that's never. This is just a bad leader. And even later on, I think I'm still gonna say he's a bad leader. But regardless, then we have Blurple Crocodile. I already kind of touched on him in the blue video. But yeah, he won a PPG case tournament. It put him on the map, spiked all the prices on TCG Player, led to buyouts. Then he never did anything ever again. And that's not hate on Blurple Crocodile. He is my favorite leader to this day. You know, I have a deck profile of him even on the channel. He is what I am main. He's my pet deck. He is actually no, he is my main right now. He is my main now that I think about it, because my main was technically green purple Dofi, but I do not enjoy playing that deck. It's good, but it's not fun. And then Blurple Kaido. Blurple Kaido was just worse Kaido. like literally, so you would give up 1 life. And if you watched the blue video, you have seen that up to this point, blue has like no good cards. So this Kaido, not only is he giving up a life, he's giving up a life to gain access to a terrible color pool at this point in the game. He's high roll because he's just as dependent on seeing Onigashima as Purple Kaido. He has a pretty good ability, but not good enough to offset the 4 life. He's just not a good leader. So then we get into the cards introduced in this set. So here we are seeing that Purple does not have a 1-drop blocker. They have a 2-cost blocker in Higurashi. So we come back to Purple's identity of everything being bigger. Even their 1-cost blocker that like red got, that green got, they get a 2-cost blocker that's 3k. Trade-off being it has counter. So yeah, they just don't get the privilege of a small blocker because Purple is a big color. They don't dabble in the small cards. We also gain another King, 7-cost King. This card is like made specifically, it feels like, to go after decks like Zoro and Law. It's just fighting for the board, -2 Dawn, establish a 7k body. It's kind of expensive, honestly. But it's a really good effect, and it can blow out certain matchups. And again, it's just more of Purple. You know, it's a big body. It does Dawn minus. It's doing destruction. And then we get Purple's win button. At this point, Purple, for the most part, really feels like it is just Kaido.deck. They're mulliganing for Onigashima, and they're hoping to see 10-drop Kaido. And yeah, you just minus your Dawn, you nuke the board. I don't understand why. God, I'm blanking on the word. But to me, the equivalent of Kaido would be like in Yu-Gi-Oh! Judgment Dragon. I don't know why Kaido doesn't blow up stage. I think Kaido should blow up everything on the board. I think he should hit the stage also. I find it very random that he doesn't. But either way, regardless, he just nukes the board. He takes out everything, your own bodies included, and he leaves behind a 12k body. And typically, like, once Kaido hits the board, the game it's ending in the next 1 to 2 turns. Either you're killing the opponent or the opponent's killing you. That is typically how it goes. He is usually like the writing on the wall that the game is over and somebody's going to end this game any second now. Now here is the 2K. This is the card I was talking about. This was a weird tech that people were playing in OP01, Orochi. So this card is a searcher. It is the only like true searcher in One Piece. That it just looks through the entire deck, it finds a target and adds to hand. Purple would play this card with literally no targets in deck to search. Literally, the reason they would do it was so they would have a turn 1 play. So basically, you would put this on the board, and it would let you look through your deck, and you would count your Onigashimas. And if there were any not in the deck, then you knew they were in your life. So at this point, now you knew that if you didn't open Onigashima, and you were digging for it, you could gamble on taking life instead and hoping to pick it up out of life. And yeah, it sounds very, very gimmicky. It didn't last by any means. And there was also some logic behind it too, because it also gave them a tiny body to stick on the board turn 1. For example, when playing in the decks like Kid, because green was an amazing color. Kid and Law. Like they would put Bonnie on the board, it would give them a small body that could contest the Bonnie. So yeah, it wasn't like the worst. You know, there was logic to it. It's very like sound logic even. It made a lot of sense. I thought it was kind of cute that like they even thought to do all of that. I always thought it was gimmicky. Eventually that was the general consensus and they didn't drop the card. But yeah, he was just a 2K body. He fought Bonnies, he swung into Namis, and he helped you dig for Onigashima or try to figure out where it was. There was also 2K Sasaki. So here is what we're gonna see, the first iteration of like a 2K that ramps Dawn. So you're seeing an OP01. If Purple wants to ramp Dawn off of their 2K, it has to stick to the board, and then on the following turn you have to commit a Dawn to it and do an attack and discard a card. So it was ramp, which is, you know, Purple wants to ramp cards. They want to get the 10 as fast as possible. But you could see like there was a like setup that went into it. Like Purple did have to jump through hoops sometimes to get these effects off. And that was kind of, I guess you could say, a weakness of theirs. And like Bandai does like eventually acknowledge this. So they have Sasaki. The other 2K is X-Drake. This is just a card that you minus it on. You take a card out of the opponent's hand. 9 times out of 10, he was just a 2K. And then there was Bagua. Bagua was a card that if you were at 2 or less life, you would ramp a Dawn. So there was more ramp. It was a searchable counter event. I don't know why I even mentioned searchable, because Purple doesn't have a searcher at this point, and even when they do finally gain it, it's a blue one, so like Kaido could never run it. And yeah, it also like promoted, like if you had Bagua in hand, for example, if you did play the Orochi and there was an Onigashima in your life, you would know to take the life, and it would also turn on your Onigashima. I mean, turn on your Bagua. My God. Got distracted there. Cats are fighting. So the best deck at the time, I mentioned it in the blue video, but it was green. Some people say it was Kid. I genuinely believe it was Law instead. Law took advantage of 8-drop Kid, much like Green Kid did, but he did it so much better, I feel. I feel like he was a more consistent performer. And also, with a deck like Law existing, that obviously was something that was very good for Kaido to play into. I'm pretty sure it was, I don't know what a better matchup would be. I'm pretty sure this was the best matchup. Law was their best matchup, and Law was one of the best decks, if not the best deck. Also, Purple was a deck that didn't really care, or they just did not care about 8-drop Kid whatsoever. If 8-drop Kid hit the board, Kaido was going to come out and nuke it on the following turn. Because if 8-drop Kid is coming out, then that means they do have 9 Dawn, so on your turn you would be 10, assuming you didn't even ramp, you know? Despite having a good matchup into Law, and also having an amazing matchup, just not caring about the floodgate that was dominating all of OP01, Purple was a competitive color, and it was a good color. But it didn't really do much. It had tops here and there. But like, for example, for like, I don't even know if it would even be exaggeration, but it feels like for every 1 purple top, there was like 10 green tops and 10 red tops. Like, it topped, but it was the minority by far. But anyway, we'll go ahead and move into OPO2. So now we are in OPO2. Or actually, no, before we get into OPO2, we move on to STO5. This is the film structure, film starter, whatever we want to call it. This deck introduces... There were high hopes for it, and over time, as the years, One Piece, not even a year, but as time goes on, this deck is deceptively good, but on release, it was panned. It was seen as just straight ass. This deck was cheeks. It gave you Uta blocker, and for the longest time, that was the only card that mattered from this deck. Uta gave you another blocker to play. Guilt to Sorrow, he's doing nothing at this point in the game, but he is Dawn -2, draw 2 cards, amazing card. He doesn't do anything in this game's history until much, much later, so just remember he exists, because he's not doing anything right now, but he will eventually. The most hyped card from this deck was 8-cost Douglas Bullet. This was because purple decks, if you were a purple deck that did not have the Animal Kingdom Pirate tag, you did not have like a win condition. If for example, Purple Crocodile was looking forward to having this card because we were all under the impression that this would be our new win condition. It's double attack, it taps down blockers, the giant body, because Purple Crocodile needed a big body, and there was Mihawk, but he was pretty expensive. So everybody was very excited for Douglas Bullet. The deck finally came out, people got to play test with it. It was not the move. He was not good. He was a massive L. He was a flop, L plus ratio. And then the next card that comes out of here is a 2K. So he is a 2K that is also a searcher. That is amazing. So you would be surprised. You would think, why didn't this card see play? The reason this card didn't see play was because on average, for a 1-cost searcher, or a searcher in general, for them to hit 80% of the time, for you not to whiff, if you wanted to hit a target 80% of the time, you need to play at minimum 18 targets. The film structure didn't really have that many good cards. There was Uta. There was... that was literally it. There was Uta. There was just Uta. Because Bueno Fiesta can't grab himself, so he wasn't a target. You'd have 4 Uta. You need 14 more cards to not whiff on him. There's Guilt to Sorrow. If you were woke enough, if you had the foresight to eventually see how good that card would become, even if you're running 4 of them, you would still need to make room for 10 more cards. The film structure just did not have enough targets to justify running a 2K like this, so it just saw no play. People just ran to Uta if they wanted to play anything from this deck, and that was literally it. So we finally move on to OPO2. Our new deck is Magellan. This is our new purple leader. We have Magellan. We also have Z, or Zephyr, or Zed, however you prefer to pronounce it. I'm just going to call him Z. So we get Magellan. He was a perfectly decent leader. This is the problem, though. So if you watched the blue video, you remember the problem was that set after set. So it was OPO1, we had Doflamingo. OPO2 gave us Ivankov, which did nothing for Doflamingo. And then OPO3 gave us Nami, which did nothing for Ivankov. It did nothing for Doflamingo. So you just gained leaders that had their own gimmick that did nothing to further the purple's, I was gonna say dominance, but Lord knows they didn't have that. So purple was probably at their strongest in OPO1 at this point, but they weren't even a top deck then. They could top, but they didn't top very, very often. So coming to OPO2, you desperately want more support to make your deck more viable. OPO2 did not do that at all. OPO2 introduces Magellan. Magellan has Jailer Beast, but even the Jailer Beast, they are quite literally leader locked to be able to ramp off of them. If you want to ramp off of a 4-cost 5k body, if you're not ramping off of it, that is not a good stat line at all. That's honestly very terrible. And it did nothing for Kaido. Kaido would never run this in a million years. And then it's the entirety of purple in OPO2, it was mostly Impel Down. They gained a new stage that let them search for Impel Down cards, but if you're not Magellan, then you're not running this. There were the Jailer Beast. Again, if you're not Magellan, you're not running this. There's 5-cost Magellan. I'm not sure. Like, this card was... It was fine in Magellan. I know some Kaidos like played around with it, but like it never went anywhere. And Magellan was a fine leader too. That was the thing. It was like he wasn't bad by any means. At this point, the OPO2 introduced a new leader in Whitebeard. Whitebeard was, I don't even think it'd be an exaggeration to say he was tier 0. Like he was he won almost every single event. So Magellan existed as, I want to say like a counter, but like he didn't even like consistently do it. Because if Magellan was as consistent a counter to Whitebeard as people make it out to be, then we would have seen, with how dominant Whitebeard was, we would have seen more Magellans performing if they were truly countering him. You know, it would have been like if you played Yu-Gi-Oh, for example, in Dragon Ruler format, there were spellbooks. Spellbooks were the counter to Dragon Rulers because they had a good matchup into them. They also performed very well. Whereas Magellan, which supposedly counters Whitebeard, like you could count all of his tops on one hand. You could count all of his like events won on one finger. Like it was like he had to see card, and like the win condition was trying to pull Whitebeard off curve so he couldn't do the 9-drop. He established 6k bodies that, you know, tried to pull Whitebeard off curve, so they were 6k, they could swing into the leader for no Dawn investment. But like he was I would say Magellan was a very rogue leader. He was perfectly valid for like a local, and he could do decent into an event. But I would think like realistically, the highest you would expect to see Magellan go would be like top 32 on average, if that. And the thing is, like, because OPO2 leaned so heavily into the Impel Down package of Magellan, if Magellan is not even performing at the highest level, then that just goes to show you they didn't help Kaido at all. So Kaido's gotten no better. Magellan is perfectly mediocre. So it's at this point, it's like Purple's only other hope is their other new leader in Z. And Z was awful. Like Z was so bad. I remember when he was first revealed, I was so excited. I said I was going to main Z going into OPO2, and I was like playtesting him on the simulator and everything. It only took like 2 or 3 days for me to realize that Z was not the move, and I dropped him immediately because he just explodes to Zoro. Zoro was like a hard counter. That had to be that honestly, I said that Blello Queen versus Blurple Crocodile might be the worst matchup in One Piece. I'm taking that back. I'm 99% sure that it is Zoro versus Z, because that was literally unwinnable. That matchup was so bad, and Zoro was a good deck in OPO2 was the thing too. So Z never did anything. He quite literally never did anything. I'm pretty sure the most he ever did was he got one top, and I think it was a top 8. But then after that, he never did anything ever again. And I think that just speaks to the power level of Z. Now, looking at the cards, we're outside of the leaders that we gained in OPO2. We got a new 2K and Little Sadie, but again, that's Impel Down. That is nothing. That is literally nothing for the other purple leaders. It plays Jailer Beast. That does nothing. We also get a new 2K and Shiki. This is irrelevant at this point, but it is worth mentioning because it is a searchable 2K off of Bueno Fiesta, who is not seeing play at this point, but it is foreshadowing for what is to come in the future. We also have Hell's Judgment. This at this point in the game, this is probably the best counter event if it's not Radical Beam. I still think it's Radical Beam, but Hell's Judgment was a damn good card. I remember thinking that this card would probably see play forever. I remember like playing this in Blurple Crocodile and being like, my god, how does anything ever compete with this? This card after OPO2 just fell off. Like if you're not playing Magellan, then you weren't playing this card. But that is OPO2 now. So Kaido is the best that Purple has ever had, and he wasn't good enough in OPO1. He was viable, but he wasn't like the top tier contender in OPO1. OPO2, all the decks have gotten more powerful. Red's gotten so much stronger. We now have a tier 0 leader in Whitebeard, and Kaido obviously cannot compete. So that means we're relying on Magellan. Magellan isn't good enough to get there either. So that leaves Z, and Z was the worst of them yet. Like, I think Z might have I don't even think it'd be an exaggeration to say that Z was probably worse than King. Like, that might be harsh. I don't know. That's my opinion. That's going to be my hot take there, if that even is a hot take. But yeah, this is the state of purple come OPO2. So now we're moving into OPO3, and you're a purple player. You want so badly to get new cards because, again, if you're playing Kaido, for example, you got nothing from OPO2 besides Hell's Judgment. That is literally the only new card you got. You gained one card from the set. You want to go into OPO3, and all you're praying for is, let me please get at least two. Like, surely that's not asking for too much. I got one last set. Bandai can't do it again. God, just give me anything. We go into OPO3. Our new leader is Iceberg. Oh my god. I remember when this leader was revealed, so many people had such high hopes for this leader. Off day one, I immediately said this leader was ass. I knew off rip this leader was so bad. I'm pretty sure he might be the worst leader in the game. In my opinion, he is. I don't think anyone can make the argument for him at the very most not being outside the bottom three. Like, he is a terrible leader. And what I don't understand about him too is like, so he is minus a Dawn to cheat 5 drops and lowers out of your hand. The 5 drops that he could cheat out weren't even good, so that didn't make. He gave up his attack to establish bad bodies. He's Water 7. The Water 7 cards just are not good though, so it didn't make any sense. So purple is now in another set where they've gotten where a new leader is a brand new gimmick that doesn't support the previous leaders, and then the new leader itself isn't good either. So we are now in the second consecutive set of purple just being neglected. They gain. I'm gonna go ahead and honestly, all of the new good cards purple gained in OPO3, it was Gum Gum Jet Gatling. That was literally it. They gained a 0 cost event and nothing else. If I want to reach, I could say maybe 2K Khalifa is the next best card they gained, but outside of that, purple gained nothing. So if you're like God forbid you're a Kaido player at this point, I don't know how you're still playing Kaido at this point. OPO2 neglected you, now you're in OPO3. You see this, you couldn't win events consistently in OPO1. You sure as hell weren't winning them in OPO2. Now we're in OPO3. And you've gained a 0 cost event. Like, if you are playing purple, if you're still playing Kaido at this point, you're a masochist, because you have to know that your deck is well past its prime at this point, and Bandai just does not seem to care. Bandai will just sit there and neglect you. And honestly, it's as upsetting as it is. We are moving on to OPO4 because that is it. That was quite literally it. Like, Iceberg never did anything. He was so bad. He was so bad. Here in North America, it's not even an exaggeration to say he did nothing. Like, that was just literally it. So now we move on to OPO4. We have 2 new leaders. We have Green Purple Dofi, and we have Yerpul Crocodile. Green Purple Dofi. This is so depressing because purple finally has a meta leader, and it has nothing to do with purple. So, do you mind? So the only reason any purple cards are seeing any play in this deck is because Green Purple Dofi is abusing the film engine, and the film engine's strength. Okay, one sec. So Green Purple Dofi at this point, the only purple cards he's playing are purple film cards to abuse off of the green film engine. He's playing Purple Uta to cheat off of 7-drop cost, or off of 7-drop Luffy. He's playing Thunder Bagua to maybe potentially ramp Dawn. He's playing Shiki just because it's a searchable 2K. It being purple is completely irrelevant. It's literally just a searchable 2K. And he's playing Guild Tesoro. Guild Tesoro is the one purple card that is actually seeing play just for like it itself. Not to be cheated off of. It's like the only card good enough to just justify play on its own. And then it also gets Green Purple Dofi at this point. He can now run the 2K that we talked about forever ago in the film structure deck. Bueno Fiesta is finally seeing play. So purple is at its most powerful now in OPO4, but it is literally because green purple Dofi is abusing green. Green purple Dofi's win condition is mostly just putting out 7-drop Luffy on curve, and then on top of that, following it up with a 10-drop Dofi. So we have purple finally dominating, and it is dominating. He's literally the most successful leader of OP04. You look at like Asia, for example. Rebecca is the deck we see more often, but if you look at the actual numbers and data itself, green purple Dofi was the better performing leader. He had far more tops. It wasn't even close. So purple is now at its peak, and it's because it has access to green. At this point, the purple is just kind of there, you know. So I don't even know if it's really even fair to say that this is like purple at its peak. Purple also, come OP04, they only really gain 1 new card. So even in the set where purple is finally seeing play, they've gained 1 new card, and green purple Dofi doesn't even run it. They have gained Miss All Sunday. She is 5 cost. Put her on the board. Rampadon, draw a card. Amazing card for every other purple deck. But the only purple deck that's actually seeing play at this point doesn't even run her. So for all intents and purposes, purple has been neglected once again. The only purple cards green purple Dofi's playing at this point are cards that have already existed. And it's just because they're 2Ks. They're blockers to cheat. And they draw 2 cards. Like that's literally it. So green purple Dofi's meta. But yeah, for all the wrong reasons. And then we move on to our next leader. We have Purple Crocodile. So this was not a good leader. This was not a good leader. I'm gonna be so honest with you. He did nothing. I know people experimented with him. I think that he may have won 1 or 2 events in Japan, and that was just word of mouth. I've never actually confirmed whether or not that was the case. But even if that did happen, and it sure as hell never happened again, he is a rogue. I don't know if he'd be rogue, but he was a locals leader, I guess is the best way to put it. So this was purple and OP04 yet again being neglected. Kaido's never topping. Magellan's never topping. Iceberg sure as hell isn't topping. Oh my god. It's green purple Dofi or bust at this point. If you want to play purple, you have to play green purple Dofi. And if you're a purple player, that is not a purple deck. So if you're a purple player, you probably quit the game at this point. You've either switched to a new color or you have quit the game. At this point, I'm gonna do one honorable mention. We also gained 8 cost Crocodile. That's my boy right there. That's my boy. He's putting purple Crocodile on the map. Now, Crocodile's not topping anything. He isn't actually performing. He isn't actually winning anything. But this card is letting you have fun at locals. So at this point, we're seeing now we're in OP04. So it's OP01. Kaido was a perfectly like B tier leader. OP02. My man got neglected. OP03, my man got neglected. OP04, he has finally gained a new body to put on the board at the very least, and it ramps on. But aside from that, the last 3 sets, he's gained 1 card. In OP02, he gained Hell's Judgment. In OP03, he gained Jet Gatling. In OP04, he gains All Sunday. Like, he over the course of gaining like 80 new cards to the color, purple has realistically only gained 3 cards. So that is the state of purple. If this was like the blue video, I would end it here. However, can't let purple end on that kind of note. So we move on to the 3 captain structure deck. It introduces 3 new purple leaders. Where it's not even out in America yet, but this is the only way that we can give purple good cards. We have to touch on the future that hasn't even happened yet. So we get 3 new leaders. We get red purple Luffy. This card, my god, this card, insane. This card was legal for all of not even 48 hours before he won his first flagship. This card was insane. Unfortunately, here in North America, my man is gimped. He is Whitebeard was so powerful that he got cards put on the list, like 9-drop Whitebeard. That was Red Purple Luffy's power play. So Red Purple Luffy is coming to North America like with no limbs. And my man he's nerfed into the ground. But yeah, Purple at this point is about to gain their most powerful leader, and because of Whitebeard, they don't even get that. So now we move on to our next leader. We have Kid. Kid is also a good leader. He also has a top to his name, and he was just perfectly valid as well. He didn't do anything crazy, but he was just a solid good leader. And then we have Law, Red Purple Law, another really good leader. Also not doing anything too crazy at this point, but my god, this is the leader where like you look at him and it's very obvious that in the future he's going to be doing ridiculous things as the color pool grows. And then we will move on to the actual cards in the structure deck. So Purple has finally gained new cards. Purple has gained 4-cost Law Blocker. If your opponent has 7 cards in hand, -1 Dawn, you trash 2 of them. You actually get to choose. So Purple's finally gained a new card, and it's a good one at that. And it's a blocker. And then we also gained 7-cost Kid. My god, this card is amazing. It's a 8k body that turns your leader into a 6k. Turns your leader into a 6k on your turn and the opponent's turn. So basically, it turns you into Whitebeard. This is going to be one of those powerful cards that Purple sees for a very, very long time. Bandai is finally acknowledging Purple and giving them good cards, and all it took was a Red-Purple structure deck. All it took was to give us dual leaders that had access to the red color pool for Bandai to finally acknowledge Purple as a color. They had to stitch like the purple leaders onto the like spoiled child, the golden child, red. This is the only way Bandai was finally gonna give Purple good cards, because they want the red leaders to be viable. And then we move on to OP05. So we are finally at the happy ending for Purple. Purple is arguably, at this point in time, OP05, nobody saw it coming. It is now probably the best color in One Piece. We gain a new leader in Purple Luffy. This was a leader that at first glance, everybody thought would be cheeks. Everybody thought this leader would be so ass. Come to everybody's surprise, he just might be the best leader from the set. He is Take a Life Rampadon. So for no cost whatsoever, you're ramping it on, and then the detriment that was supposed to be picking up cards from life actually turns out to be a good thing, because you're basically drawing another card. This leader was insane. He's just ramping Dawn to put big bodies on the board. He's actually playing the Magellans to neg the opponent's Dawn. He's just putting giant vanillas on the board. He's putting so much pressure and big bodies on the board that the opponent can't keep up with it. And then he's doing cheesy things that I'm going to address later on. We move on to our first new card from OP05. So Purple at this point, Zorojuro is a character that if you're at 3 or less life, if you swing with him, you just ramp Dawn. In the past, Purple had to discard cards to do this. You are now seeing Purple has been adjusted for power creep. Bandai has noticed just how far behind Purple has fallen, and they're doing everything in their power. Zorojuro is just swinging. There's no cost or anything whatsoever. He just ramps the Dawn for free. We also gain Kid Blocker. So this card just might be the best card Purple has ever gained, and probably will gain for a very, very, very long time. This card lets you use all of your powerful Purple effects for literally no downside. In fact, not only is there no downside, you're actually rewarded, because not only do you ramp the Dawn back, you ramp it back active, so you actually gain an additional Dawn to play the turn with. This card was so amazing for Purple. This was like exactly what they needed. The new Luffy's also abusing this. He's playing Magellan, for example, negging the opponent's Dawn, and then ramping the Dawn back off of Kid Blocker, giving himself another Dawn to play with. And then we have 10 cost Purple Luffy. This is the cheesiest thing in all of One Piece. You play a 10 drop, he minuses all of your Dawn, puts your entire board back into the deck, minus himself, and now you just have a giant body on the board that's going to skip the opponent's next turn, so that he basically says he has rush when you really think about it. So you have your leader swing, you have the giant swing off of him, and another leader swing. And this is how Purple Luffy's closing out a lot of his games. And then, so now Purple finally has a win condition. Up until this point, remember, Purple, if you were not Kaido, you did not have a big purple body to play outside of like 9-drop Kaido. So Luffy has finally given non-Animal Kingdom pirate purple leaders a win condition. And it's one that works. It's just one that actually works. It's seeing play and it's actually doing things. It's taking events. It's seeing play and like winning list. And then we move on to also the 2Ks. So there's Zoro, there's Kid Blocker, there's Luffy, and Purple still has more new cards. The 2Ks are good even. We have Frenosuke. This is a 2K that if you ever need the rush, you can put a 2K on the board and you just have rush now. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have the best stat line, but just even having access to an additional swing for the turn, like even if you're just playing on something like Law, for example, it's a body you could stick on the board and just like swing at a Bonnie or something. That's just really, really good. 2K with rush is great. We saw it in Diamond Jozu with Whitebeard. For Nosuke, he's not that good, but it is a 2K with utility. Up until this point, all of the 2Ks Purple has gained have done nothing. They have done literally nothing. There's Little Sadie, but she was literally only for one deck. And then we also have a 2K and Miss Double Finger. So you may remember in the past, the 2K was Sasaki. It was Sasaki. He had to attach a Dawn and then attack. So he had to survive a turn, then he took a Dawn, and then he discarded a card, and that's what it took to ramp Dawn. Now with Power Creep, Miss Double Finger just hits the board, discards, and she automatically ramps. There's no gambling on whether or not she gets bottom decked against blue or anything. She doesn't have to survive the turn. She's just gonna do it automatically. And this is where Purple finally is. Purple, if they are not the best color, then they are in the conversation, but it's looking like Purple probably is the best color of OP05. Purple was the most neglected color by far. If you thought blue had it bad, Purple had it so much worse. And by the end, Purple is finally an amazing color. They're finally efficiently ramping. Before, like, the only reliable way to ramp really was Onigashima. They were so reliant on Onigashima. If you didn't see Onigashima, Purple did nothing. And then if you weren't Animal Kingdom Pirates, then you didn't even have reliable ramp to begin with. Magellan was like relying on Jailer Beast, for example. And then even Magellan was like more of a niche pick. So they finally have reliable ramp. They finally have good 2Ks. They finally gained their win condition in a giant body. They're finally ramping Dawn so reliably that they're sticking giant bodies on the board. And they're also ramping so efficiently to the point now that they're willing to minus their Dawn to minus the opponent's Dawn. And then they've gained a blocker on top of it, where now all of your purple cards have no downside. In fact, they have an upside because you're gaining powerful effects and then you're being rewarded with an extra Dawn for it. You stay on curve, but you gain another active Dawn to play the turn with. So this is the story of Purple in One Piece. Let me know what color you want to see me cover next. And yeah, that's essentially it. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. Let me know in the comment section if you have any suggestions, if I forgot anything, if there's anything I didn't cover. Probably it's because it's probably intentional. Certain cards, if they didn't help Purple as a whole, then I probably didn't mention them. If they only helped like one specific Purple deck, then I probably didn't cover it because the video is long enough as is. Since I knew I was gonna have to cover the film structure, since I knew I was gonna have to cover the 3 captain structure deck, and then I was also gonna have to cover OP05 to give Purple their happy ending. But with that being said, until next time, I'll see you guys.